All right. Good morning. I'm Don Walker, and I'm going to be presenting an overview of Python, particularly using the Anaconda distribution of Python. Python's open source. No one's allowed to really charge money for it, and Anaconda is the most popular community, I think, of using Python. And Anaconda comes um, with more than you need to just do Python programming. It comes with the Python interpreter, which is what changes your Python code into something that the computer knows how to execute. But also comes with editing environments and things like that. And what I'm going to use to demonstrate today is called a Jupyter notebook. And this is a web-based interface into Python that you can also use to document what you're doing. And you'll see
Mhm.
that. You'll see that here in just a sec. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, my whole screen, and nothing but the screen. Okay, so once you go to here, I'll Google it and bring up the URL on the page. Um, just Google Anaconda Python, and it will this individual edition at anaconda.com is what you're looking for. So you scroll down, and you will see the installation packages for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Um, if you're on a Windows machine, I recommend the 64-bit. If you're on Windows 10,
Mhm.
if you're not and you're on a Mac or Linux, you're kind of on your own. But there's lots of information out there of which one to install. But anyway, you download the installer and let it go. It takes a little while. Give it a little bit of time to install. But once you are finished with the installation, you go down to your start menu and under the A's, and you'll see this Anaconda uh, folder on your start menu. Um, I've got a couple of environments set up. You can disregard that. What you're going to want to click on is Jupyter Notebook Anaconda 3. And again, I'm demoing this, but I can't really help anyone necessarily troubleshoot. Clicking on that should bring up a new tab in your browser. I use Chrome. It works flawlessly, so I go with it. So when you click on Jupyter Notebook, the first window you see here is really an Explorer window. This is just looking at your folders and your files and whatnot. I keep all of my Python stuff on my OneDrive so I can work on it here on my desktop or when I'm on the road on my laptop. So I
Mhm.
keep everything in my OneDrive documents as opposed to on the hard drive of this computer. But this is the default view when you pop into this is exactly should be exactly the same as what you get when you pull up File Explorer. So it's the same thing, and you can do some stuff with a shortcut where it goes directly where you want it to go to. But I always just browse to it. So there's my Python directory in my OneDrive documents. And this is where I keep all my stuff for Python. Um, but I learned Python a couple years ago in a college class, and that instructor liked to use this directory structure where notebooks are your your Python code. That's where you'll be typing in commands and making it do stuff. But as you get into Python and learn a little bit more about it, um, you will be using data files, and it's good to keep them separately so it doesn't get too cluttered. So I try and do that. So this is the directory structure I use, but I go into notebooks, and so you see I've got a bunch. Some of these I've written myself. Some of them are from a colleague of mine, a fellow professor.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are downloaded from GitHub. So there's just no end of Python code out there. It's just a huge community. Um, Arguably the fastest growing, most adopted language. They're using it to teach kids now in school. So it's all over the place. So I got a bunch of notebooks here, right? These are all, um, I'll show you the most basic one or most informative one. Intro to Python and Notebook. This is written by a colleague of mine, Dr. Mike Ellis. You click on that notebook and it'll open the notebook in a new tab, and it will start an a kernel, it's called, of Python, so that your Python code will work. So this is a notebook, and you can see in your tab you've got some menus, just like you do in many other applications. File, which you can save and stuff, and some edit commands that let you work here in the notebook, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So a notebook is really just a web page that consists of these things called cells, and you can see them when you click on them. See that blue line changes. The boundary inside of it. Each one of those are an individual cell. And inside of a cell, you can have either documentation, which is just kind of like a web page, kind of like HTML, that lets you document and tell a story about your Python program. Or you can have good old fashioned code, and that looks a little bit differently. So if I double click on a markdown cell, which again is just documentation, you'll see the symbology, like pound sign. 1 pound gives
Mm-hmm.
you a header. 2 pound signs gives you a slightly smaller header. 3 pound signs is smaller than that. So, and you can do a formatted list. There's just a lot of things you can do with Markdown. But if you want to execute a cell, there's a run button up here, and that works for either Markdown or code. So you run, and it converts it back into the pretty text that you're trying for.
Okay.
So that's a markdown cell. Now,
Is this
uh,
on the Python folder?
um, this is all on my hard drive. I
Oh,
don't.
okay.
None of you have this stuff,
Okay.
but Michael, I can email this to you. Um, in fact, I'll zip up all of my notebooks and get that to you, so you can unzip them in a folder and then just bring them up and start playing with them like I am. But let me go over a little bit more about what a Jupyter notebook looks like. See, there's um, if you just use a dash, it will translate that into a list. If you just use numbers in a markdown, it'll translate that to a numbered list. And then you got code, Python code. So this here, you see the color turns green instead of blue.
Mm-hmm.
That lets you know it's a code cell. Plus up here um, you'll see in this, I don't know, cell type drop down, um, code markdown, raw NBC convert. You'll have to look that up. Raw NB convert. I don't even know what that is. Never use it. But here is some actual Python code. And when you're getting into Python, um, once you kind of get rolling, um, um, the help out there is just unlimited. You just
Mm-hmm.
Google how do I work with strings in Python, and you'll see a tutorial pop up. It's just crazy. But Michael, do you have any programming experience at all? Did you ever learn BASIC or
No, not at all.
nothing? Okay, well,
Nothing.
when you're writing a computer program, you will use things called variables to store data, and you want to make it like a meaningful name. So let's um, let's just real quick, real easily here. We'll call it person's age, and to name a variable, their rule. You want it to be pretty much numbers, letters, and underscores. It can't start with a space. It can't start with a dollar sign. So there's rules in every programming language for how to name a variable. But basically, it's just a set of characters all together that kind of makes sense. So we're going to
Mm-hmm.
say person's age equals uh, 22, and then we'll print person's age. See, and that print, that command, that's all you need to get um,
22. Okay.
output. Yeah, output to the screen. Um, you can print as many things separated by commas as you want. They can be variables, or they can be something in quotes that is just it's called a string literal. Um, so you get going with that and print that one out. If you want to clear the outputs of these cells that you've been running, you just say current output clear, and it'll get rid of that. So if you wanted to change this, um, uh, instead of contains, you wanted to change it to has, and then you run that code, it prints out, and then it prints what I told it to say. So it's
Mm-hmm.
printing a literal string, comma, the variable, what is in my var.
Mm-hmm.
My var, remember, is 9.
The
My bar
top.
is 3
Okay.
plus 6 up here. Yeah. Um, you could also go like this. You could say, um, and the person is uh,
My bar plus
yeah.
letter.
So person's age and my bar. So you can use, any combination to build up an output statement. Any combination you want of variables. Uh,
It's 22.
and the person is
Okay.
22 years old. Yeah. So that's the print statement. Trying to think of what other you can um, over in your go back to your tab that has the files,
Mm-hmm.
and click on new, and then under notebook here in little tiny letters, click on Python 3,
Okay.
and that should bring up an untitled uh, notebook. So you got that?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Up here in untitled, click on it and type in hello world, and that will name the notebook hello world. And it'll also save it as uh, an
A save.
IPYNB file on your hard drive, where whatever directory you're in right now.
Okay.
It'll save it as a Jupyter notebook, so you can bring it up later. So that's a blank notebook. All it comes up with when at first by default is a code cell. Um, so um, you can type this in, Michael. This is every computer programmer. Every piece of software you ever run into, or every computer programming language, you want to write a hello world program. Hello world. This is making your program say hello to the world. It is alive. It operates. This means you've got stuff installed right, and the environment working, and so print that. You can use single or double quotes, whichever are more intuitive to you. Just pick one or the other and stick with it. So print hello world. You got that typed in?
Got it.
And then if you hit enter, you know how a lot of things, when you hit enter, like a text or whatever, or a Facebook comment, it automatically does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Python, it just goes to the next line. So hitting enter doesn't do anything. You need to hit run,
Okay.
and then you see hello world underneath.
Okay.
There you go. So that's a computer program. That is it. Now, it gets um, you know infinitely more complex. There are things you can do in learning programming. I'll try and remember how, without looking at my book or anything. I'll try and remember the Python syntax for. So okay, so we talked about a person's age. Now, one thing to notice about these notebooks is they're all independent. This Hello World notebook doesn't realize that we have a thing called person's age over in that other notebook because they each have a separate copy of Python, a separate memory area and everything. So I'm going to
So it
use
just adds to the, okay, I
well,
see.
it's just kind of like when you're in a Word document. If you type something, unless you cut and paste it into the clipboard, which makes it knowable by the entire anything going on in the computer. You know what I mean? Like one Word document doesn't know what's being typed into the other Word document, kind of thing. And that's
Okay.
kind of what's going on with these Jupyter Notebook tabs. They each have a separate copy of of Python and of memory, and they and any variable you declare in one notebook, it'll be oblivious. You can name it the exact same thing in another notebook, and and they won't get confused because they're independent of each other.
Okay.
These tabs. So we're going to say person age this time equals 22. Okay. So I want to say if person age is greater than 21, and I think you need to indent. Maybe you need a colon. I've worked with so many programming languages, and they all have a different way of doing things. If person, yeah, there you go. Put a colon at the end. That that lets Python know that you're going to do these next things only if they're greater than 21. Only if person age is greater than 21.
Hmm.
So you're going to print uh, congratulations. This doesn't matter. I mean, it's anything. Congratulations, you are of legal age. Um, and then say we want to do the other thing. If they're greater than 21, um, then we can do a thing called elif, which is kind of like else. If person's greater than 21, then do this stuff. Otherwise, um, if if they're greater than 21, actually, let's use 20, which means they are 21, right?
Hmm.
Let's say so if they're greater than 20, um, that means they must be 21. So let's go instead of using elif, I think we'll use else.
Else. Okay.
And I think we need a comma, a colon there too. Again, I'm flying without I'm tight roping without a net here. I don't have my language reference manual open in front of me, and I don't work with Python often enough to have all these little
All
things
good.
memorized. So print too too young. All right. So that would be in computer science what you call a conditional statement or a branching statement. This is where when you're writing a computer program, you can do certain things based on certain conditions. And these can go from super simple like this to extraordinarily complex.
So it's just basically giving some logic, right?
Logic. Yep.
Yeah,
And
okay.
you gotta think of how you would solve the problem. You'll as you take computer programming classes, it's like word problems in in math class. Remember, and you have to think of how you would walk the computer through the problem. And it's always better to sketch things out kind of on paper and in pencil, and
Mhm.
kind of think of exactly, exactly how you would store a variable and when you would change that variable and those sorts of things. So let me see if this runs. Kaboom! It ran. I remembered all my syntax. So the an if then and you can do
Oh, I see
within
now.
an if else in Python. It's called if elif else. The else is everything else. You could say if a person is greater than 20 and less than 25, do something. L if they're 26 to 30, do something else. L if
Mm.
they're 30 to 35. So you can do these categories of uh, of of cases
So
in Python.
say if I put person age is 22, if a person's age is 20, you put congratulations. If elif, if it's 20 to 25, do this, then you can add if else 30 to 50, you can
Mm.
add the okay.
Yeah. So
Then
you
you're
could say
good.
like, okay, here let's do like an insurance category thing. Let's say if person age um, is greater than 20, person age is less than 20, or but we want the other direction, don't we? Less than if person now you need to do it in groups here. If person age is greater than 20, it's and there we go. And person age is less than 30. And I put it in parens. I don't know that you have to. Let's try it. Um, let's say this. Congratulations. Enjoy your 20s. So this, say if we were categorizing people for whatever, insurance or a discount or whatever, um, then we would have an an elif colon. Sorry, we need a condition. Elif uh, person age is greater than 30. Now, when you do this, um, a lot of times you need to have greater than or equal to um, 30, and person age is less than 40, say. Whoop, less than 40. Then we have a um, so if they're in their 20s, we're going to say congratulations, you're in your 20s, and you could repeat this elif for as many different combinations
Mhm.
as you want. And it seems like even if you accidentally overlap them in your logic, once it finds an elif that is true, it'll execute that and come out to to the next line down here underneath the else. You know what I mean? Once it hits an elif uh, um, condition that satisfies it, it'll do that leg of the branch and then pop out and won't do anything else. So let's see what we got here. With when the age is 22, um, congratulations, enjoy your 20s. Now let's say they're 35 and we run it again. Enjoy being a 30 something. Now I would expect even it's going to say too young, but even if I put 60, it's going to say too young, right?
Mhm.
Because they're outside of those. None of it never satisfied any the if or the elif, so it's going to do the else. Yeah, there you go. And that's starting to show you kind of logical blocks. But then there's another one. Let me go back to my Explorer. Then there's really only for anybody watching this recorded and for Michael, the only one who came in live. There are really only three types of statements um, in a program. There are sequential statements, and I'm going to fast forward down my Jupyter notebook here, and this just talks about um, Jupyter notebook and programming rules. This notebook's used at the kind of like on the very first day of a college class. But check this out. There are three types of statements in any program, and this is any program, not just Python. This is R, Java, C, C++, Pascal, you name it. Um, there are three types of statements in computer science at its core. And that's sequential, which was what we started out doing like variable assignments and print statements and things like that.
Mhm.
There's a decision, which we just did. We
Mhm.
If, elif, else. There are some languages call it a case statement, um, where it looks at this if a variable is this case, which means it's it meets a condition, then do this stuff. And you can have multiple categories, just like we did with the age category just then.
Mhm.
There are different types of decision operators, but that's it. That's it. It's if then else logic. I mean, if this, then do something else, do that. And then there's repetition. Sometimes you want the same chunk of instructions to repeat, and it's called looping, writing a loop. Um, Sometimes you want it to repeat a certain number of times, and sometimes you want that loop to repeat
Mhm.
until a condition is met. Like you could write a little program that says, that maybe that calculates something, and you would tell the user enter, the number to calculate. You could like a mortgage calculator say,
Yeah.
enter the amount you're borrowing, enter the the mortgage rate, the interest rate, and then you would do the calculation or enter Q to quit. And it would keep doing little mortgage calculations for you until somebody entered Q instead of an amount to borrow.
It reminds me of this YouTube video. This guy sent like a fake email with malware or something. So he did like a coding to send him back. He did like a looping coding to send multiple like emails back to him. It was
Oh
funny.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's if you get the logic wrong, you can write a loop that's called an endless loop, where because I mean, the computer does what you tell it to. It doesn't. Some advanced environments will tell you when it senses an endless loop, and it will automatically terminate. But not that's not always true. So you can write something that's supposed to repeat until X, and you wrote the code that turns X into whatever you want it to do, and it never got there, and it'll just sit there and it'll just
Mhm.
the blink at you, kind of, you know what I mean, as it's running in the background trying to ever get to where X equals 2 or whatever. So yeah, there's only three kinds of statements in computer science, and Python is no different. So some basic, we did a hello world. If you start a line in a code cell, this is different than a markdown cell. In a code cell, if you start it with a hashtag, it will be a comment. It'll be ignored, and that's how you can write notes to yourself, or other programmers that explain what's going on in the code. Um, if it's not super obvious. So here's some more assignment statements and whatnot. You want to use meaningful variable names so that you're not trying to remember what in the heck X, Y, and Z are later.
Mhm.
There are string data types. You can store a string of characters in in a variable, and you can splice them together with the plus sign. It won't try and do weird math. It'll just add them together in a larger string. So there's just lots of traditional functions. You just got to get into Python and start playing with it. I did want to show. I don't think I have a loop in this um, in this notebook. So let me go back to my Explorer and pull up. Um, I could swear that I have. Um, yeah, repetition. Here we go. So this an example of what loops look like in Python. Um, yeah, here's an example of one that can go on and on and on and on and on. Um, uh, there's a structure called a while loop. Um, and like I said, if you write something in that while loop um, that never gets satisfied, it'll sit there and blink at you when you try and run this. Blink, 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 blink.
Mhm.
So that's why it's very often um, good to have a print statement inside of a loop that you're writing and you're working on, so that you can see on the screen where what's going on in your loop. So that's why I'm printing years and balance here. I don't. I think this. I think this is an endless loop. I don't want to go back and spend the time to troubleshoot it. But I think I wrote an endless loop here while I was playing with this. But that's a while loop, and that can, like I said, that can be. Um, let's. I gotta remember how to get input from the screen. Here's another notebook that talks about. Um, I wanted to get input from the screen. Input output. I'm trying to remember if it's read. Yeah, it's input. So to get someone's input from the screen, um, you use the input command. Input how many students have been donated. This int converts whatever they type in to an integer is what that's doing there. But um, let's do cell insert or insert cell below. And this is the insert cell below gives you a fresh code cell. So this is just, I'm just goofing around in a notebook here. I'm going to say, um, uh, well, let's go back. No, let's go back to our hello world. Yeah, let's go back here. Okay, so person's age equals input. How old are you? Like this would be like on a web page, when before it lets you look at the flavors of beer at the microbrewery.
Yeah.
Input how old are you? So let's run this and see what we get. How old are you? 30. Boom. We got an error. Input type. And yep, there you go. That shows you why. Um, boy, this is getting to be way more than just a demo of Python. This is getting to be computer science 101. Every variable has a type, a data type. It can be numeric, it can be integer or float. It can be a list of values, kind of like A comma B comma C comma D, and you can refer to the third one of those, when you're working with it. It could be a string of characters. So there are 6 or 8 data types in Python. When uh, I got to see what this does. Uh, of the type function, I want to say, uh, yeah. So some computer programming languages that you can learn, like C++ or Java, make you pick the data type of a
Mhm.
variable. Before you ever use it in your code, you have to say, I'm going to have this thing called person age, and it is an integer. And I'm going to have this thing called person name, and it is a string, and it can be a maximum of 20 characters. It makes you put limits on your variables
Mhm.
and declare them, it's called. Python is not like that. Python tries to do things on the fly, so it's called dynamic typing, and
Mhm.
it's one of the things you'll have to get used to when working with Python. So it's always safe to do one of um, these conversion commands. This is converting the input from, you see it said class string. By default, it guessed that 30 was a string of characters, not a number. And you can't do math on a string. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It doesn't know when you're a string data type, it doesn't know mathematical operators like greater than or less than or whatever. So that's where data types and this is all part of, like an entry level computer programming course, which I would recommend either, at least a Udemy course. I think we all get LinkedIn Learning as part of the University of Phoenix. But you guys would have to look into that as students. Ask your academic advisor or tech support
Mhm.
if LinkedIn Learning is associated with your school account. I know it is mine. I assume that's not just for faculty. So anyway, we converted now our input into integer. That's what the int command does. It
I
says
see.
turn whatever's inside these parentheses into an integer. So now if we run this again and I say 30, it says class int. See, my int command forced Python to consider that, and now from forevermore until I change it again, person age will be an integer.
Uh,
Yeah,
okay.
there you go. So that's
Uh,
data type. That's a little bit about data types, but let's do this. Let's do a. How old are you? Let's do a while loop. We don't need that anymore. So in here, let's do a while person age is greater than 20. Okay, so we're only accepting integer values. Um, so while it's greater than 20, and then I think I might need to indent this stuff. If it barfs, I'll fix it. Um, Let me go look at my no, come on, at my repetition thing. If I do a while, yeah, I got to indent. Python does recognize, not every language does, but Python looks at this white space um, inside of a block of code. And
like
it
a
and
subset.
that's how it knows that all of these things are what I'm doing inside of this one
One.
while loop. Yeah. So where were we? Hello. So I gotta go back here. I don't need the blank line, but I need a tab. Doot. Tab in all of our if else elif stuff so that it looks kind of like it did before. Um, and then when you're done, back out here at the same indentation level all the way to the left. That's when uh, you're done with the loop. Okay. So we're gonna need to ask the age again inside of the loop, aren't we? Or it's only going to ask the age one time and it'll only execute the loop one time. So in order to do that, I'm copying and pasting that line, and I'm pasting it, and it needs to be at the same level of indentation as the if else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see. That's a lot of code. I run every other line when I'm when I'm programming, because if you type too much in, you don't know when you've introduced an error, and you don't
Uh-huh.
necessarily know what it is. So it's always good run and save early and often, because it gets complex pretty quick. But let's see what I've done here. Syntax error.
Line
While
two.
person, I need my colon. If we go back to my repetition block, you can see there's a colon at the end there, right? That's how it knows that we're about to go into a block of code. So now let's try it again. Where am I at? Hello world. There we go. Run. All right. At least it wants to know how old I am. Um, while it's greater than 20. So let's say 22. Congratulations. Enjoy your 20. How old are you? 30. Okay. How old are you? 79. I'm an old man. Too young. What are you talking about? See, I didn't program the appropriate logic. But now, uh, when I enter something that is less than 20, because that's my exit condition, right? We're doing
Mm-hmm.
we're doing all this code in here while person age is greater than 20. So if I type in 18, what should happen?
Should be, and I'll probably put it back to young
If I type in 18,
until
um,
30. Let's see.
which
Invalid.
right now, because this print statement, the print statement that we are executing right now to get, or I'm sorry, that the input statement is this one right here. We only did this one at the outside the loop. We only did that the very first time.
Mm.
So in fact, let me. I'll make them different so we see that the initial, uh, and then I'll say still need to know. How old are you? All
30.
right, so let me clear. Let me sell current outputs clear. Clear all that, and let's run this again. What happened? I'm in an endless loop. Hang on. Yeah, hang on just a sec. There's a stop button around here. Here we go. Stop.
Oh, okay, I get it. So if you put 18, I mean, before you did that coding, is probably put how old are you still?
Well, what we got to do, and this is always good practice, what we need to do is set person age to um, 0, say. You know what I mean? You set an initial value in a variable rather than, because the next time you go and run this, it's still in there. Person age was still active. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the while loop. Yeah. So something's
Um,
going on here. I got to shut this down. Let me hang on just a minute. File, close and halt. And we'll leave that, and we will go back to the Explorer window. I'm telling you, this is why. Do, 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 do. Hello world. We should see our code. Yes. So now that we started a new I got out of that notebook and came back in, everything should be erased. Let me see what we get now. Okay. Initial, how old are you? And again, this should so let's say I'm 23. Congratulations, enjoy your 20s. Let's say and now it's still need to know. See, now we're inside the loop, right? I
Mm-hmm.
still need to know how old are you? 34. Still need to know 56. Still need to know 78. And it's going to keep doing that, right?
Uh-huh.
Until I enter something that's 20 or less. And then it should exit the loop, print, I'm all done looping, and be
Oh, I
done. And
see.
be done. See? So because we have satisfied the exit condition of the loop, we're going to do all of this while I keep entering something greater than 20 into person age. And that's how
Oh,
that's see, there you go. So now we're saying 20, so that's not greater than 20.
the
So should
loop.
say I'm all done looping. I'm all done looping.
Oh, okay.
He shoots, he scores. So I'm going to leave it there. We've done a little bit of Jupyter Notebook, a little bit of what a variable is, um, a little bit of what conditional statements are and logic and problem solving and a little bit of looping. I will tell you that there's really only two kinds of loops. There's a while loop that does something until a condition is met, like me entering less than 20 or 20 or less. And then there's a thing called a for loop that will do something for a given number of times. And like for the loop counter equals 1 to 5, it will do that 1 through 5. And you can use the loop counter inside of the loop to check where you're at, to check how many times you've been through the loop and do something each time. But it's when you want to do something a limited number of times or an exact number of times. And a while loop is just that. You want to do something while a condition is true.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I'll zip these notebooks up and just unzip them into a directory. I suggest creating a Python directory and then maybe even a notebook directory underneath that. And keep their IPYNB, which is short for IPython notebook, files. So a notebook is a standalone file that has both some documentation and some code. But yeah, just to show you in our Hello World program here, um, I will call this a markdown cell now, and I'll put um, a header, and then we run it, and we get a header. See, so that's a markdown cell. That's a code cell. This area here with all of our output is still part of the code cell.
Uh-huh.
It's just the output area. I'm not even really sure what you would call that. All right. So I'm going to zip up some notebooks for you to play with, along with a book or two, a PDF book or two,
Okay.
and then, like I said, go on Google, and there's tutorials, free Python tutorial. There's YouTube. There's any number of sources out there. In addition to what I'm doing, but I just wanted to kind of get you. Have you been following along at all with this, Michael, by chance?
Yes,
Cool.
I was just playing myself too.
All right. And that's
uh,
really that's the best way to learn. It's like playing guitar. You learn a little bit and you play. You know how you get to Carnegie Hall, practice. So just like with any language, practice makes perfect. All right. So I'm going to stop recording there, and I'll post this session as a link. And for anyone who contacts me, I'll provide that zip file with useful notebooks and PDF documents of Python syntax.
All right, thank you, doctor.
All right, you're welcome.
Have a good day.